When it comes to business metrics, cash flow is certainly near the top of the list. It's the best way to see if a company is doing well or not, how it operates, and how healthy it's going to be in the long run. In this video, you will learn more about the basics of cash flow in a simple and straightforward way. Saying that cash flow is the bloodline of any company is no exaggeration. While assets can gain or lose value over time, cash income and outcome is an almost foolproof metric. Having a good understanding of a company's cash flow is an absolute priority, whether you are an investor or a business owner. The basics of cash flow. We will break down the basics of cash flow into three easy-to-understand topics: the definition of cash flow, how it works, and the types of cash flow. 1. What is cash flow? In very simple terms, cash flow indicates the net amount of cash that enters and leaves a company. As we mentioned earlier, a company's assets, like its products and investments, can gain or lose value over time. Because of this, it's hard to get a good picture of how well a company is doing by simply looking at its earnings report or a list of assets. These numbers can be easily masked by deliberately inflating or even lowering numbers. Cash flow, on the other hand, is about as straightforward as it gets. It tells you how much cash is entering the company and how much cash is leaving the company. In other words, it shows how much money the company has at its disposal. It's easy to make a struggling company look better than it is by overvaluing its assets. But if the company keeps losing cash over time, it means that it's bound to go belly up at some point, barring a miraculous turnaround. It goes without saying, but having cash readily available is absolutely crucial. Even assets with high liquidity can fluctuate, leading to losses in value. Cash, on the other hand, is used in immediate transactions and is universally accepted, which makes things a lot easier. Having cash on hand is what keeps any business running by covering its day-to-day expenses, like paying its bills and employees. Excess cash can either be invested in improvements. It's also important to save some for unforeseen expenses. Now, you are probably asking yourself, how does cash flow work in practice? 2. How does cash flow work? Positive and negative cash flow. Now that you know the definition of cash flow, it's time to understand how it actually works. Let's start with the basics. Cash flow is essentially split into two parts: the money that goes in, called inflow, and the money that goes out, which is called outflow. Both inflow and outflow can be generated in three different ways: operations, investments, and financing. We will elaborate on each one later in this video. In order to know a company's net cash, all you have to do is subtract its outflow from the inflow. If the result is positive, then the company has positive cash flow. Likewise, if the result is a negative number, then the company has negative cash flow. It's worth mentioning that negative cash flow isn't necessarily bad, as long as it doesn't turn into a trend. A company can rebound from a minor loss, especially if the negative cash flow originated from an investment. Companies with positive cash flow also have more flexibility in their day-to-day operations. If something unplanned happens, like a delayed payment from a client, then these businesses can relocate their cash without significant problems. As long as a company can keep their cash flow positive over time, it's going to turn into a sustainable business. But if the cash flow is consistently in the red, then the company will eventually go under. Next, let's take a look at the different types of cash flow. 3 types of cash flow. Going back to one of our previous topics, cash flow can essentially be split into 3 different types: cash flow from operations, cash flow from investments, and cash flow from financing. We will now go through each one of them. Cash flow from operations, also known as operating cash flow, or OCF, is the cash flow generated by day-to-day operations. The net OCF is determined by the sales and payments received by the company minus the payments made to suppliers, employees, and also rent. If a company has positive OCF, that means it can cover its daily operational expenses as well as eventual debts. Negative OCF, on the other hand, means that the company is struggling to do so, which means that the money to keep the business running must come from somewhere else, like loans. Next up is the cash flow from investing. As the name suggests, it refers to cash generated from investing activities, such as the returns from stocks and securities, or sales of these same assets. Likewise, losses from investments will generate negative cash flow. As we mentioned earlier in the video, negative cash flow from investments isn't necessarily bad, as long as it doesn't turn into a trend. Well-planned investments can quickly make up for these losses and turn the negative cash flow into a positive one. The third type is cash flow from financing. It refers to how a company raises money for its operations and how it repays dividends and debts. When it comes to this type of cash flow, the inflow refers to issuing equities, debts, and to all borrowing sources. The outflow, meanwhile, originates from repaying debts, repurchasing equities, and paying dividends to shareholders. In this case, a positive cash flow from financing can be a detriment. If a company has a high positive from financing, it means that the business is relying too much on cash from external sources, a situation that isn't sustainable in the long term. This is everything you need to know about cash flow, so you can have a good understanding about how businesses manage their money. Tell us your thoughts in the comments and let us know if this video answered your questions. Wealth Enriched is your source for all things finance. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to turn on your notifications to keep up with our content. See you in our next video.